Tonight on the Fanatic Forum, to believe the hype or not to believe the hype? That is the question. And we're going to discuss some famous movie hype campaigns. Did they work? Did they not work? We've got some new comics. And of course, we are not going to talk about the most famous movie to come out this weekend, Deadpool and Wolverine. Or won't we? We'll see. Right here on the Fanatic Forum. And welcome to the Fanatic Forum. I'm your Fanatic and host, George Bueller. So good to see you guys here today. Our junior Fanatic and co-host Seth Seth Moore, will not be joining us this week, unfortunately. He is on assignment. I literally sent him to Antarctica. He said he wanted to find the Savage Land. So, Godspeed. We'll see him back here, hopefully, on the next episode here. We'll get a full report about this. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, hope you all had a wonderful week out there so far. Man, I tell you what, big movie out this week, Deadpool, Wolverine. I will not spoil anything here because it is very important to no spoilers, folks. I love this poster here. He's literally hanging upside down between his legs and giving us the shush there. So, I won't spoil anything about Deadpool and Wolverine other than just to say I really enjoyed the movie. It's a blast. It is 100% a Deadpool movie. Don't fear about that, folks. Maybe don't bring the kids to this one. It's an R. It's a hard R. And stay all the way through the credits. Other than that, we'll talk about it at another time. But yeah, it's a blast. I love it. So, all right. Very exciting weekend here. Oh, we already got a comment here. Diamond Dave Manningly. Oh, so good to hear from you too, sir. Always a pleasure, man. One of my buddies. So, we have got some geek news here. Of course, it is San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. There's already been a few panels coming up that they've had so far today, and I think a few yesterday as well. I'm waiting for Marvel's panel because Marvel Studios is making their triumphant return to Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con. And it's been a long time since they've been there. So they've probably got a lot of stuff here now that Deadpool and Wolverine are out. We know we've got our senior trailer for Captain America, Captain America: Brave New World coming out in February. Agatha All Along coming out in the fall on Disney Plus. So we got some stuff coming in the near future for Marvel, but yeah, I'm sure they've got a lot of things to talk about. What's coming in the next few years for movies and TV and all that sort of things like that. So very excited about that. But in some geek news for this week here, DC has, of course, made their triumphant return to Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con and has unveiled a very lovely new logo here for DC Studios for their movies and TV. And as an old DC Comics fan, that's a lovely logo right there. Classic DC right there. I think this gives us a really good indication of where James Gunn's head is at for his new initiative for DC, for all the new movies, the TV, and the animated stuff he's got coming out here. He's building a world, he's building a universe, and you know what, folks? We might actually have some fun DC movies coming up here in the very near future. That's what I'm feeling about this one. But yeah, I'm excited. Just seeing that logo. We haven't seen a single trailer of anything yet. We've seen some pictures of the Superman, stuff in production right now. We know the Creature Commandos animated film or series, I believe, is coming first. So we haven't seen anything of that yet either, except maybe a few stills. But yeah, just that logo of we now have like a head for the DC movie stuff here. Like we've had Kevin Feige over at Marvel for years. it just everything kind of feels right about that. So yeah, I'm feeling good. That looks very nice. Dave Mattingly saying he's also looking forward to Creature Commandos. Yeah, it's and I like kind of the approach too they're doing with things. Of course, Creature Commandos will be, I think, I'm pretty sure it's going to be an animated series. I'm not sure if it's a movie or series, but pretty sure it's a series. But all the voice actors that are playing their various roles, if the characters are ever used in a live action setting, those voice actors will reprise their roles in the live action world. So kind of keeping, again, consistency. Or if any of these characters are used in upcoming video games, those same voices will be used. So consistency, 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 folks. That is what DC has lacked for a long time. And yeah, this is very exciting. So, all right, cool. So, yeah, good time to be a fan about this stuff here. All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about here. Of course, our topic for this week that we're going to get to a little bit later on, in honor of Deadpool and Wolverine, is movie promotional campaigns. Believe the hype or not to believe the hype. Because, of course, there have been numerous over the decades famous campaigns to promote a movie, get people to come into theaters, sit in their butts in seats, enjoy it, tell their friends and family about it, all that good stuff. Did the campaign work? Did the movie live up to the hype? All those kind of questions will be answered in a few films I've picked out here. I mean, there's been many more, and I'd love to hear from you guys what some of your favorite campaigns for, or what you remember most about certain movies, or what got you excited about the films, of your childhood, of modern day, whatever the case may be. We'll talk about those, but of course, we are first going to talk about new comics, and boy, oh boy, do we have some good books this week here. Actually, I don't have any Marvel selections for this week. We had some good Marvel stuff coming out, but unfortunately didn't really make the cut. The indies really kind of won this week. As you guys, some of y'all probably know, I work over at Collaborative Comics in Elizabethtown, and for our new books this week, we had over 200 facings, which means that's 200 separate different covers. Now, whether that's not the same book, sometimes there's variant covers or incentive books and things like that. But yeah, 200 different facings this week. That's crazy. Yeah, so, yeah, I've got basically one DC book to talk about this week, and all the rest are independents here. So let's get started. First off, a very highly anticipated DC book here, The Nice House by the Sea, by James Tynion and Alvaro Martinez Bueno and Jordi Belair. This is the sequel to A Nice House by the Lake, which was a very kind of like, it's a supernatural. I wouldn't go so far as call it a horror, but there's definitely some horror elements to it, definitely some sci-fi elements. But it's a group of people who are seemingly at the end of the world, are literally in a nice house sitting off a seashore. Everything that they ever needed is provided for them. They just can't leave the area that they're in. So that was the plot for A Nice House by the Lake. There was some kind of character that everybody knew, was a mutual friend for everybody, that ended up being something more than human. Definitely. I don't want to spoil too much for you here. But there's a reason why all the people in the original were there. And once again, we have another group in another location. But this particular character in the front here, that's Lewis. So if you read the original series, a lot of the characters talked about Lewis, as in like, hey, he was a friend of so and so why wasn't he with us? And yada yada yada. So this character was talked about a lot. Well, this group, Lewis, is in it. So yeah, it's like I said, I would equate this kind of very much to kind of a Lost Twin Peaks sort of kind of feel to the book here. So definitely some weird things, maybe supernatural, maybe alien going on with this, but a lot more questions than answers. The original Nice House by the Lake was 12 issues. Nice House by the Sea will also be 12 issues. But even in this first issue, we're already getting a tie-in with things. But yeah, I'm very excited to see this come back. Very highbrow sort of stuff here. So yeah, really, really enjoyed this one. I'm looking forward to a lot more from that one. Of course, I'm a big sucker for a lot of stuff James Tynion does. He's definitely one of the premier writers in the country right now. So yeah, he hasn't really done it. There's been some books that have come out like, oh, that's really good. But then he's also done some great stuff. He's never really done anything that's just not been good at all. So, he's on a roll for sure. It's basically since his days doing Batman and Detective Comics for DC. Yeah, it's been fun. All right, so lots and lots of independence this week here. So let's first off get to from Mad Cave, a new Flash Gordon book here. So Mad Cave is basically getting a lot of the older properties and kind of giving a new fresh coat of paint. They've done the same with Dick Tracy, with Gatchaman, or as you may know them, G-Force or Battle of the Planets. And now Flash Gordon is the next subject here for a little bit of a reboot. This is still the Flash Gordon we know and love, just giving it a little bit more of a harder edge. Basically, Flash and Ming, the Merciless, have had kind of their major conflict. Apparently, something big has happened, and Flash isn't necessarily proud of his actions here. So that's kind of the spot we're left in here. But when we find Flash, he is a prisoner. He doesn't quite know where he is. He's trying to bust out and get to basically his friend Dale Arden and just kind of find out what's going on with things here. But apparently he's been there for quite some time, grown a beard, been there for whatever else. But yeah, like I said, just, good old Flash Gordon, sci-fi adventure, stuff like that, very pulpy sort of stuff, but kind of going back to a little bit more of a rougher edge to things here. So yeah, really, really excited about this one. Upcoming, there is going to be a Defenders of the Earth comic series from Mad Cave, which that was a team book with the Flash, Mandrake the Magician, the Phantom, a few other characters. So whether that's going to have a little bit more of a comic booky kind of feel, or that's going to have a little more of a pulp feel, remains to be seen. But yeah, like I said, if you kind of were an old Flash Gordon fan for various series or the movie or whatever else, yeah, this is a lot of fun. Highly recommend checking that one out. Dave Manley chiming in with Flash. Everybody loves that one. Yeah. God bless Queen. All right. One I've been very excited about here from Oni Press. They have brought us back the return of the mighty EC Comics. You know them from Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, many other anthology, horror, and sci-fi and fantasy series. So the old EC Comics is back, but now with a new series here. This is called Epitaphs from the Abyss. So again, it's a horror anthology. I think it's about 5 stories in here. Just an outstanding array of talent involved in this book here. But the feel of the art, the old kind of O. Henry endings where you're going to learn a lesson, but it's a hard lesson, kind of stuff like that. I can't say enough good things. This is probably one of my favorite books of the week. I'm just absolutely gushing about its return. I think in a couple of weeks, we get another book, I think it's called Cruel Universe, and that's more of your sci-fi anthology book coming out. But yeah, if this is the indication of what we're going to have, if you're an old fan of the EC books, it's a welcome return. At this point, it doesn't seem like Oni Press is going to do any, bringing back the old titles we know. I think they're going to be kind of doing some new stuff here. At least that's how it's going to go so far. Whether or not the fans demand we do more Tales from the Crypt or Vault of Horror, or whatever the case may be, crime or shock stories, things like that. But yeah, so lots of variant covers too for Epitaphs from the Abyss. This is the Lee Bermejo cover with monsters and people hiding under the bed there. Yeah, great cover. And how dare they have 2 of my favorite artists here, because another variant cover with Andrea Sorrentino, with the red stuff there, but yeah, that's gotta be every coroner's worst nightmare of you're working on a stiff in the morgue, and oh hey, there's one getting up behind you. Yeah. But again, I cannot say enough good things. There's foil variants of these. There's plenty of incentive covers as well. But yeah, just some outstanding art and just a fantastic return to some old school anthology horror. So yeah, couldn't love that one enough. Now, on the other hand, the opposite side of this tale here, shall we say, a lot of hype on this book this week here, but Boom Studios' Hello Darkness, which is a new horror anthology, which has a dynamite team of people on here. Garth Ennis, Becky Cloonan, James Tinian, Werther Dell'Edera, which basically James and Werther are the team behind Something is Killing the Children. Jude Ellison, Steve Orlando, A.L. Kaplan, Robert Hacks. I mean, just a who's who of people in the independent scene right now. They're just absolute superstars, writers and artists, all of them. I didn't like this one. Flat out did not care for this. And I was shocked by this. So much hype is over on Hello Darkness that's not going to Epitaphs from the Abyss. And I think it's the exact opposite. I think all the love needs to be going to Epitaphs right now. With Hello Darkness, basically each story is maybe 2 pages, maybe 3. So just as like there's a couple that actually are good, including the one that's the Something is Killing the Children story. But just as things start, it's done. The longest story is the Garth Ennis Becky Cloonan, which is at the end of the book. And the odd thing is, for a Garth Ennis story, it is the most boring Garth Ennis story I've ever read. It's really weird. I mean, Becky Cloonan's a very talented artist. Her art is great. I mean, it's, you don't have to worry about that. But the story, it's called The War. And it's basically starting out, a bunch of friends are hanging out like in somebody's apartment, having a cocktail party, and they're all talking modern day politics. I'm literally like 2024 modern day politics. And that's the majority of the story. And then the end of the story is some guy's at home with his wife and just about ready to go to bed and looks at his phone and says, London has fallen. And that's the end of the story. And then, of course, it's a multi-arc, but it's like, what? So you see nothing but all these people just chatting. It's supposed to be a horror story. It's yeah. So there's the Something is Killing the Children story was decent, and there was one other story of kind of, I guess, like some sort of signal or whatever else that was making kids like turn on their parents, like basically murderously turn on their parents. Those are the 2 other good stories, but there was like 7 or 8 stories in here. And like I said, just as things got going, they were done. I was very, very disappointed, which was really surprising with the level of talent that's on that book. All right. Well, another book I was not disappointed with, however, The Return of Keanu Reeves' Berserker, the Immortal Warrior. So since they did the original 12-issue series, they've been doing a series of one-shots. So we've had Berserker in Atlantis as the captain of the guards. He's been in the Persian Empire. Now we've got him in the Old West in A Faceful of Bullets. This is written by Jason Aaron with art by Salvador LaRocca. And if you love Berserker and you love Westerns, this is a lot of fun. It's a shame this is only a one-shot because I would really love to see a lot more of Berserker in the Old West. It's kind of fun about this character. It's basically him being this immortal warrior, this force of, kind of a force of nature, I guess is the easiest way to say it. But it's, just a character driven to violence, not necessarily by his own choice. But kind of gets roped into a revenge story. And it's all the same blood, gore, and outrageous violence that you love for Berserker, but still a good story and a master writer by Jason Aaron. You can't go wrong with that. Let's see. Next up, from Image Comics, we've got issue 4 of Rook Exodus. This is part of this new Ghost Machine initiative. So you've got basically Jeff Johns is behind this with with a team of other artists and writers doing sort of a shared new universe of superhero characters and whatever else. However, Rook Exodus is something that's separate from that. It's still coming out under the Ghost Machine imprint, but not part of that same universe. It's basically a sci-fi story on a planet basically we terraform, and then essentially after 5 or so years after we terraformed it, we all kind of turn on each other, and then basically ecological disaster forces people to leave. The last people who are on the planet, kind of almost caretaking it or seeing it basically through to the end, are called the Wardens. They're these fellas here in the suits and the mask. Now, the Wardens are basically people with this mask that adorns them with basically able to control a certain animal of their assignment. So Rook is the main character here. He controls the crows. You've got Swine that controls like pigs and warthogs. Ursaw controls the bears. Ka controls serpents and snakes and things like that. So so on and so forth. Uh, this issue number 4 here, you get kind of more of a conflict, more of a growing thing here, because basically the character of Ursaw, who is the bear warden, uh, is a new character. He's not the typical warden. He apparently killed the previous one and is killing other wardens, kind of forcing his own will upon the rest of the other wardens, for kind of waging his own war, so to speak. Here, he's kind of recruited some of the other people to his like, and so you basically got wardens fighting other wardens here. Uh, you get kind of a great cliffhanger ending on this 4th issue here, but 3rd issue really kind of opens things up with introducing many other wardens of other different animals, with their personalities are like, things like that. A lot more conflict, a lot of action in this issue, but Rook Exodus is one of those books, 4 issues in, the book keeps getting better and better as it goes. It's just a solid sci-fi story, a very original kind of concept and feel to it. You've got art by Jason Fabok and Brad Anderson with coloring by Rob Lee. Of course, like I said, Jeff Johns, the writer on this one here. Absolute superstar team on this book. So even if you don't care about any of the other connected universe stuff like that, just check out Rook Exodus. I'm telling you, just awesome, awesome stuff here. Last book for our new stuff here. From Dark Horse Comics, we have Nemesis Rogues Gallery from Mark Millar and Valeria Giordano. This is the direct sequel to Big Game. So if you read all the crossover in the Millar-verse, stuff like that, this is a direct sequel to that. Nemesis now has a new home. It was originally an Image property under... basically kind of under loan from the Millar world, Mark Millar shared universe stuff, but now over at Dark Horse Comics. Not entirely sure why that is, or if we're going to see any other Millar world stuff move from Image to Dark Horse, but this is the first one to do so. But yes, this is a direct sequel, so if you read Big Game, that was basically all of the villains of the Millar world. That's basically including numerous titles, stuff from like Jupiter Ascending, Wanted, The Kingsman, things like that, tons of other titles. All the bad guys basically got together and tried to kill all the good guys. They almost got away with it, but basically the good guys win in the end, sort of thing. I don't mean to spoil it for you, but Big Game is a 5-issue miniseries. Highly recommend checking it out. A lot of fun there. But in the end, our lead villain, the Nemesis, who's basically kind of like I kind of equate him to, if you remember the Michael Douglas movie, The Game, the David Fincher one, where you've got basically, people playing, rich people kind of playing a game, sort of thing like that. They're kind of playing a role of, whatever sort of thing like that. This is basically if you get violent Batman, bad guy Batman with guns, has no compunction with murdering, killing people, so he's like the perfect criminal, basically. Well, when all the heroes essentially won the day, Nemesis was left alive, but the shape he was in was pretty rough. So apparently this is the road back and the road to revenge for Nemesis here. So what that's going to mean, I don't know, but we shall see. But yeah, like I say, if you enjoyed the previous Nemesis, there's been 2 volumes so far. This is right there along with it. I'm really excited about having a new title back for this one. So yeah, really, really good. Enjoy that one here. Oh, we got a comment here. Bill Doris, one of the co-hosts for Smokes and Road Beers podcast. So definitely check those guys out on Facebook and Rumble. And actually, I'm going to be on there pretty soon here. I think August 1st, maybe? Yeah, pretty soon in August, I'm going to be on there talking stuff here. So what's Bill got to say here? When he went and watched Deadpool and Wolverine, he thought it was pretty darn amazing. Almost too many Easter eggs. Yes. Yeah, don't want to spoil anything further, but yes. It's definitely going to be one of those movies where folks are going to want to revisit this more than once. There's water there. Yeah, there's a lot in this movie. That's definitely sure. A lot in this movie. But yeah, don't want to spoil anything further for you guys here. But yeah, so a lot of fun. Definitely check out Deadpool Wolverine before anything does get spoiled for you. We're going to take a break real quick here for our sponsor, Comic Books for Kids, and then we come back, our topic of the evening. So we'll be right back.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add more.
Visit cb4k.org.
Yeah, and if you can, in any way, shape, or form, definitely support Comic Books for Kids. A fantastic organization, fantastic people there. They do the good work, that's for sure. All right, so since basically we've been talking a little bit about Deadpool and Wolverine, and again, no spoilers, folks. No spoilers here. This is definitely a movie campaign that has received a lot of hype, lots of promotion. Everybody's seen the Deadpool Wolverine popcorn buckets, where you basically got to throw your arm down Wolverine's gullet to get your popcorn. Yeah. Anyway, lots of crazy stuff going on here. Lots of trailers, lots of anticipation, lots of hype going into this movie. And, of course, is it worth it? In my opinion, for Deadpool, yes, it was. But many other films throughout history have also received interesting campaigns, interesting ways to promote it, get your butts in seats, get people talking about it, things like that. And so we're going to go through a couple of those. And basically, I've got selected 5 films from basically going from the 1960s to the mid-2000s. So some of the basic campaigns I remember very clearly, or something that stood out, or whatever else. I mean, not the 1960s, obviously, a little young for that one. But I want to hear from you guys about basically if you remember, certain trailers or movie posters or just various other promotional stuff that you really remember really stuck out for you for a certain film, and did it pay off? You did it put in the did it put you in the theater on opening day or opening weekend? Did you enjoy the film? Did it did the hype live up to it, or did it turn out to be a big dud? There have been many of those, I'm sure. Oh, I got Carl Wilson chiming in saying that he's going to see Deadpool Wolverine tomorrow. Awesome. Stick all the way through the credits, guys. Stick all the way through the credits. That's all else I'm going to tell you there. But yeah. All right. So our first film on the docket of the hype train here, you got to go to one of the most famous ones, one of the best promotional campaigns for a film, 1960s Alfred Hitchcock classic Psycho. So what stands out about this film are 2 things during the promotional campaign for this. In basically throughout the early days of film, even going into the 50s and the 60s, it was still very common for movie theaters to play films essentially on a loop. It wasn't like you had certain show times. It was like when the theater opened for the day, all the movies would start and they would just keep going on a loop. So you would essentially just come in and, wherever the point in the movie it was, like they had like certain kind of designated show times, but for the most part, it was very commonplace for people to come into the middle of a movie and then, okay, well, I didn't come in right at the beginning, so I'll stick here where I am, and then I'll stick around for the next showing, watch what I missed, and then I'll get up and leave. And that was also very commonplace. So it was kind of a very, almost kind of an honor system sort of thing. But for Psycho, on the other hand, Hitchcock wanted to change that sort of motif, that sort of trend, because obviously there's, one of his big stars, Janet Leigh. She's in the beginning of the film, and not to spoil anything, because this movie's, 1960. Janet Leigh doesn't make it past the first 20 minutes of the movie. So your big star is kaput, very early on in the film. And then, of course, you get to the end of the film, and there's the big surprise with Norman, with Anthony Perkins' character, Norman Osborn. Or not Osborn, Norman Bates. Good Lord. Somebody reads too many comics here. The big surprise with Norman Bates there. So Hitchcock didn't want anybody missing anything, being confused by the film, whatever else. So basically, the campaign with the posters, with print campaigns in the newspaper, on the radio, whatever else, even a few television campaigns, but mostly it was newspapers and radio, magazines, the theater itself. Pretty much just told you show up on time. And if you don't show up on time, you won't be allowed in. You have to wait to the next showing. So it was very strict, and theaters abided by this, and it actually worked, which was surprising. It really kind of started almost the discipline of people showing up to films on time, and kind of really started what we know today, where basically everybody's there, you're waiting, you get your commercials, you get your trailers, and whatever else. So yeah, it's kind of that discipline wasn't always there, but now it is, and Psycho was kind of what started that. The other thing, and a little bit on cue with what we were talking about with Deadpool, is that Hitchcock basically would also say, hey, when you go see this movie, tell your friends to go see it, but don't spoil anything. Let them experience the surprise. And so it was kind of almost like, hey, you're in on the secret. Don't spoil the secret. Tell your friends to go, and then you can talk about it later, but you're in on the know. And so they kind of played it like that, like you're in some kind of secret club, knowing, what you know about seeing the film that your friends or your family or somebody doesn't know about, or your coworkers, and oh yeah, get them to see it, and then we'll talk about it later. But yeah, so that was kind of the fun of that campaign, and like I said, it 100% worked, which is really odd that you were basically able to train. Of course, this decades before the internet, sure, but it's just really interesting that you're able to train people that way. The next promotional campaign I want to talk about, and you guys will definitely probably remember this one here, 1989's Batman. Now, for those of you actually watching on Facebook or YouTube here, you see basically just the symbol, the big gold bat symbol, and it says June 23rd. That was the teaser poster. Until basically probably, maybe late April, early May, when you had the one sheet actually come out with have it just said Batman, had the cast on there, it had June 23rd. But for almost a year, that was your poster. It's like, we're doing a Batman movie, show up. It had a huge campaign. I mean, toys, glasses from, was it Burger King, I think? Just all kinds of just crazy, crazy stuff. Tons of merchandise, tons of hype. And of course, I mean, the movie, grossed millions of dollars, was a humongous hit, turned around Michael Keaton's career, made Tim Burton a star director, yada, 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 yada. So it launched a franchise basically because, before this, we had basically Adam West, Burt Ward Batman, which a lot of people grew up on. A lot of people have a very fondness for that franchise. And there's other Batman fans like myself who, of course, I caught that show at reruns. I was, born in 76. So, I caught that one a little bit later. But to me, that was kind of a bastardization of Batman. I personally did not like it. I did not like goofy Batman. Batman's the Dark Knight. He's the world's greatest detective. The Dark Avenger sort of thing like that. And yeah, so the 89 Batman definitely was a return to form for that darker stuff. On the other hand, though, me personally, I was not a huge fan of it. My biggest sticking point was the fact they made the Joker be the killer of Batman's parents. And that wasn't comic accurate. And so as a child, 1989, I'm like, nope. No, thank you. Not accurate. Kill the movie for me. I was enjoying it literally up until then. I was like maybe 3/4 of the way in the movie when they make that reveal. Like, nope. Nope. Now, on the other hand, Dave Mattingly disagrees with me and says he thinks Goofy Batman is the best Batman. So there you go. See, it's all just a matter of opinion there. So there's a lot of people who love the 60s Batman stuff. I mean, there's, comic books that spin off from that. Still, they make toys and figures. So people love 60s Batman. Yeah, so don't let me stop you, folks. Now, here's a campaign that a lot of hype went into this, a lot of excitement went into this, but the results were a huge dud. I am talking about 1998's Godzilla. As in, oh my God, I can't believe this film was made. You've got the superstar directing team of Toby Emmerich and Roland. Can't remember. Anyway, the team behind Independence Day and lots of other hits. So they had a very good track record going into this. Oddly enough, your main human star was Matthew Broderick, and that was a little bit of an odd choice there. Uh, you had huge campaigns behind this one. The size does matter. Followed this one with basically you had giant feet of Godzilla being used as comparisons to things around like world monuments, and people could pose by one, and basically so you had all sorts of things like that, just using like, Godzilla's a really big guy, we're really playing this off here, we're doing a modern day take on it. The soundtrack had like Rage Against the Machine, the Wallflowers. The big cut on there was P. Diddy doing, basically sampling Led Zeppelin, and Jimmy Page was playing on that cut. So you had, tons and tons of, big name, artists who were all on this soundtrack, tons of things going into it. And what happens? Wow. A bad, bad movie. Um, it wasn't good. Your human storyline was not very memorable. They gender swapped Godzilla and made him a female so that she could make baby Godzillas. So at one point, you got basically humans running from giant mom Godzilla and several baby Godzillas. It got stupid in many places. It really kind of threw the franchise back for a while, where you weren't getting anything from the States with Godzilla. It set the franchise back so much, and it really, I think, kind of took basically some Japanese production companies doing was, I think it was like Godzilla 2000, I believe, was the next offering from Japan. And that started kind of setting things back a little bit in the goods column there. And then it literally took quite a while to kind of get things back. You had a lot of Japanese films come out. And then, of course, we've had since like the crossover stuff we've had with Skull Island, and then the Godzilla King Kong crossovers we've had, and the various other Godzilla films. And of course, now we've had Godzilla -1, which has done a heck of a lot of good for the franchise. So, but yeah, Godzilla '98 really was the turd in the punch bowl there. Let's see. Dave Mattingly says the best promo for that Godzilla was Ben Stein in the museum. I remember Ben Stein doing one. I don't remember what that promo was, but yeah, it's I get it. Just like I said, there was such a big hype train for this movie. I remember it well. I was working in movie theaters still when this came out, so yeah, there was a lot of excitement for this film, and then it did not work out very well. Now, a year later, there's another movie that comes out that basically changes the face of horror movies as we know it. And I'm talking about the Blair Witch Project. This is, of course, not the first of the found footage horror films. There have been a couple that came out in the early 80s, especially you got Alien Autopsy. I think that was like 85, I think. So there have been some other found footage horror films before, but Blair Witch really set the standard and really set the genre off to what we know today. And a lot of that helped with we had TV specials. The website for the Blair Witch Project was amazing. I mean, of course, this is 99, still kind of early days of the internet, but there was you could go down the rabbit hole on this. I mean, I bought this thing hook, line, and sinker for months on end, thinking this was 100% real. That this, like, we were going to watch before even watching the film, just the hype train, the weeks and months leading into the release of the film here. I thought basically I was going to go watch some kids get murdered by a ghost or some crazy witch thing or whatever else. And then later on, you kind of start figuring out, okay, maybe this isn't real. But you start asking yourself those questions. But there are still a lot of people, upon the release of the film, that wondered whether this was real or not. It just absolutely did all the work, getting you interested in this, getting you knowing the story of the Blair Witch, getting you knowing the story of these kids, doing a documentary film, going out looking for the Blair Witch, some kind of evidence, whatever else, and then the creepy horror that happens on that fateful camping trip the kids make that we see in the movie. But yeah, like I said, just a outstanding campaign that really got you invested in the movie and asking a lot of questions and really questioning reality as it is. Like I said, I'm not alone. I've talked to a lot of people over the years about this movie, and just really, it's like, yeah, like we absolutely bought into the thinking this was real. Even my wife, at the time she grew up in West Virginia. She was also a river raft guide. So spent many, many nights, especially during the summer, camping out with your friends along the river. They watched this movie and were planning on camping after watching this movie. Suffice to say, they camped in someone's backyard that night. There was no way they were going to be in the woods for an extended period of time after watching Blair Witch. So, yeah. Just, that's definitely one that I remember. I remember going to see with a group of friends. I had maybe like 5 or 6 of us, and we were all kind of asking a lot of questions, very hyped and whatever else. And on the way home, it was very quiet, so we were all a little freaked out. Dave's got a comment that says that Roddy Piper likewise bought into They Live, being based on a true story. Really? I didn't know that. He bought into the fact, he thought it was all true. That's crazy. Oh, Rowdy. And of course, a classic film, They Live, one of his finest performances. Probably that, Hell Comes to Frogtown. All right. And our last film here on the hype train. And this is an interesting film because this one, it was almost kind of the reverse of what we've been talking about. A fine film, a very enjoyable adventure, but literally the campaign killed it at the box office. Interestingly enough, I'm talking about 2012's John Carter, based off John Carter of Mars, the Edgar Rice Burroughs series of novels, basically about a Civil War soldier who basically through mystic means gets transported to Mars and basically becomes a warrior adventurer, kind of a almost bit of a Spartacus sort of character where he helps an uprising against a corrupt government and basically helps kind of win the day over a series of adventures and battles and things like that. The film itself is a very enjoyable adventure film. Great, even though it's got a lot of scantily clad people, I still say it's great for families and whatever else. It's got a lot of kind of old school fun and optimism to it. An outstanding adventure. Unfortunately, the movie campaign killed this film. First off, it was for the longest time still going to be called John Carter of Mars, which is the title of the book that it's based off of. But then initially, some producer said, you know what, I don't like that. Let's just call it John Carter. Also, Dave Magley, you bring up a good point here. It says, why would they not call the movie a Disney Princess of Mars? Yeah, the first John Carter book is actually called A Princess of Mars, and that's what this movie was actually based off of, mostly that first book. But yeah, I essentially here's what happened. You had a power struggle, or actually not power struggle, power shift at Disney. One executive who was there initially loved the film, championed it, grew up reading the Edgar Rice Burroughs novels, and was all behind this film. And then that executive leaves, new one comes in. New executive does not give a flip about John Carter. And so basically is wondering why we're giving any kind of credence to this movie that's a ripoff of Dune, a ripoff of Star Wars, a ripoff of Lawrence of Arabia, a ripoff of this and that, and just so many other adventure, action, sci-fi, fantasy properties, whatever else. And no one really had an answer for him. So basically the campaign is pretty much like comparing John Carter to all those properties I just named, as opposed to saying all those properties came from John Carter. All of that stuff was inspired by the writings of Edgar Rice Burroughs. Because basically, we know Edgar from Tarzan, and John Carter basically was the second most popular and important character. So all of this stuff is influenced by John Carter. And instead, Disney kind of does a flip flop. It's like, oh no, this is all kind of a rip off, and just really very dismissive of this film. It bombs at the box office and then basically kills the franchise entirely, which was just very disappointing. Because again, like I said, the film itself, I highly recommend checking out. I believe it's still streaming on Disney Plus right now. But yeah, just wonderful, absolutely fun. Like I said, adventure film, kind of a fish out of water sort of storyline. But of course, because basically Mars's gravity is different than Earth, he has almost different abilities, different powers that the other Martians don't have. And just the way they've got just the layout of the culture as well. It's actually just very fascinating, fun story. Like the original writings themselves, I'll just say, much like sometimes H.P. Lovecraft, Burroughs does not age well. But nonetheless, still fun. There's a lot of adaptations out there that are worth looking at. And of course, like I said, just check out the film itself here. Dave comments says that you could even say that Superman came from John Carter. Absolutely, Superman was influenced by John Carter. Because basically he leapt over tall buildings. So did John Carter. So, yeah. They did. It just, the irony of it is that after the film was released, a fan made a super trailer. It's still on YouTube now if you look it up, and it literally goes into explaining the history of John Carter, explaining how it influenced a lot of the sci-fi and fantasy that we know today, and then re-editing the trailer that Disney had. We're talking maybe maybe almost like a 3-minute trailer, perhaps, like a little bit longer than usual, but just not epic long, but about like a 3-minute trailer. But it's absolutely wonderful. If they would have released this, that would have sold the film 100%. But a fan made this, not professional at Disney, and so that's kind of it ended up being lost in translation. But it's like it's kind of the old what if sort of thing like that. So yeah, like I said, just John Carter. If you haven't checked it out, you're looking for a good sci-fi adventure fantasy film, especially something that's good for the kids. Safe, it's not safe for the kids, I should say. Yeah, highly recommend checking that one out. Dave Mattingly says that the University of Louisville Library has the world's largest collection of original Edgar Rice Burroughs materials. Really? I did not know that. That's interesting. Apparently they're going through a remodel too there. So we got some, probably some exciting things coming up there in the near future, I'm sure. So, all right. Well, that is all I've got for you guys today here. A little bit shorter than usual here. Like I said, just by myself here. But yeah, I want to share some of those interesting hype train kind of movies with you. Just like I said, all the promotional stuff with Deadpool and Wolverine really kind of inspired me. And it's like, yeah, let's talk about that. So I definitely don't want to spoil anything on the film for you here because, again, never my guy here. No spoilers. But yeah, highly recommend checking that out. We'll definitely probably talk about it a little bit when we come back next time on the Fanatic Forum here, where we should have a special guest here. I don't want to give it away just yet, but we've got a friend coming on who's got a new book he wants to promote here and tell you guys about. You can help support that. Also, want to remind you guys, share, pass out around the Fanatic Forum to all your friends and family, all the geeks in your life there. Anybody you want to share, fun geek stuff with here. Also, for all you all who listen on Spotify or whatever else, I'd love and appreciate you guys as well. A new addition to Spotify, you can actually now make comments and ratings on individual episodes. So if you guys got some comments, questions, whatever else, though, Spotify listeners out there, land them on there, man. Get back to me. I'd love to hear from you guys. We're all just a big community, big family here, and I want to keep it that way. Always keep the things open for discussion here and make this an open forum as it should be here. But anyway, you all have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Always a pleasure being here with you guys here on the Fanatic Forum. Y'all take care, and we will see you next time on the Fanatic Forum. Take care.